Yo, yo, yo. What is up, guys? Welcome back to TWE Charts. Okay, AMC. What are we doing? Oh, we're doing it right, is what we're doing. Okay, guys, before I get started, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. As always, help support the channel. All right, so AMC, we are going to cover the cycle. Cycle and patterns today, guys. So we're going to be doing some reference pattern updates, and then we're going to be looking at the cycle. Okay. All right. Let me get volume out the way. It always just gets in the way, dude. You guys know where we're at. Okay. So the cycle. Here we go. The 62-day cycle. How is it tracking? Okay. Well, right now we have an inverse tracking. Pretty much what that means is that in the phase that we're currently trading it, which this is the directional phase. This is typically what ends up. This typically decides the direction AMC is going to take. Okay, and right now we are definitely tracking inverse. You can see the structure of this pattern is pretty much the same. Okay, now I did mention this a little bit ago that this part of the cycle can be sped up at any given time. And this is why we're going to be talking about these reference patterns, because the cycle, we already know it tends to be pretty accurate when it comes to the POIs and even the pattern trading that's taking place in the theta phase. The theta phase is typically right after the POI happens, and then it runs pretty much towards the end of the red portion of the cycle. Okay? All right, so these reference patterns, they're going to help this thesis, right? This thesis that I have here on this projection. So this right here, again, is a macro reaccumulation pattern. What happens after a volatility zone? These guys reaccumulate shares, and then for that reaccumulation, we want to see more upside, right? Or else it becomes distribution. You get something completely different. We call it an inverse POI whenever we're expecting volatility and the price starts to fall in that same range. That is typically considered a inverse POI. Now, this is where it gets interesting, guys, because now we have other patterns that we're tracking. A lot of these were found with the pattern scanner on the Discord. And yeah, I'll take some time, I guess, to kind of show you guys how that works. So it's Plotzy. That's the name of the bot. You enter a ticker, and then you have to fill out the parameters with that. So you can select the interval and then the length, and then it'll scan for that. And it's pretty cool because it just spits out, close matches to that specific pattern. So that's on the Discord, guys, if you want to check it out. A lot of these patterns were found through that. Okay. All right. So on to the patterns, man. Let's start doing some analysis here. Okay, so here are the patterns, bro. Okay, we have about 3 new ones I want to talk about, and the rest are still tracking. So we're not getting rid of Carvana. The reason we're not getting rid of Carvana is because this one right now on the macro, okay, this is the macro projection here, is tracking not in time, but we're taking a look at the levels. This one's very important for levels, okay? And we also have this pattern here that we've been tracking for a little bit as well. This one is the most accurate pattern so far, okay? We have the cup that we're expecting here, but take a look at these sections in here because the levels have been hitting, but we also have, after the triple top that turned into this double bottom, right, which is a version of this, we have this projector that's just gliding, right? And that's where AMC is at right now, this purple phase, and then now this red phase here, which is just, again, it's just a little theta channel before the volatility zone hits again. Okay, but that is a little bit bigger than what this pattern is calling for. Again, the algorithm likes to slow things down according to these option expiration dates. And we have a major option expiration date coming up, the 21st. So it kind of makes sense that, prior, maybe 2 weeks prior, they start to really work on that theta to burn some of those contracts. Okay. All right, so there's 3 new patterns. One of the ones that I am really bullish on is this one here. Now, the reason for this one, and coming out of a macro reaccumulation phase, it shows us the projector. Or I'm sorry, coming out of accumulation, it shows us the projector. The projector, again, is what happens before every major run-up. And I've been tracking this one for a little while now. And you can see right here, we hit the first target at around 550, and then it got shut down, and now it's trading back at support. Okay, so this is why we have this new red phase here. Okay, this pattern here is formulated, it's a mix of all these patterns, but I really do agree with this one. And if you were here on the live yesterday, I talked about that it was very likely that because we hit this 550 target that we were going to come down and trade at least sideways until next week. And so far, things are playing out, man. Things are playing out. Again, expecting volume to rise earlier in the week, potentially on Tuesday, and then finally seeing that $8 to $10 range by next week. Okay, so here's one pattern, and then we have this guy right here. Okay, so this one, I'm only tracking the structure, right? So we split it up into 3 things because structure is very important. Pattern structure is important, which gives you natural POIs, which are just volatility zones. And then you have patterns that are a little bit more accurate in the levels and in time. These are the best ones. And then, as far as fractals, right, patterns that you take on smaller intervals or larger time frames, you can use those as well. They won't be as accurate. I always talk about 1-to-1 patterns are the best ones. And again, those are what the pattern scanner Plotzy scans for. So that's why these are very, very important. All right, we have one more. Plug. Again, this one is a fractal, but it's showing us something similar to Jack's right here, the other pattern, which is just a massive cup. Now, this one doesn't have the handle. It just keeps going. It doesn't stop. Because this pattern is so big, okay, it actually is very useful even on smaller time frames because everything that happened in this pattern here took a long time to develop. So, the algorithm was really working hard in developing this pattern, right? This structure of a pattern. And it's the same thing, guys, just a different version of this macro reaccumulation pattern that is just a giant cup. And we can already start checking some of the sections off, right? Like this right here is pretty much just a mix of what's happening down here. And AMC, if I was taking a look at this pattern here, I would think we were probably in this section here, getting ready to climb and break highs again. Okay, break resistance again. And I mean, even zooming in, man, we can definitely see that the structure here is developing into something like that. We have it on this one, and we also have it on Perry here. Same thing. You guys can see that. It's like a descending wedge a little bit. We call this the descending M, right? This is a smaller version of it right here. And then the price starts to rise after that. So it's very important that in the coming days, right, going into next week, that we do, we stay on this support trend line. Macro support's important, right? We don't want to be breaking unless we do experience that fake out I talked about. I mean, that's another possibility. Every pattern that we track is a reference pattern, but, every stock is going to do a version of that. So we don't track the levels to a T. You have to leave a little bit of room for these wicks, right? These hanging wicks. Sometimes there is just a lot of volatility, guys, and that ends up canceling out with these via reversals, these fake outs. So that's very important when it comes to tracking these patterns. Okay? All right, bring back the volume real quick. Okay, so in the cycle, another thing I was being asked was when the next POI is, right? So here's the cycle again. And remember that because I do believe, these sections tend to speed up And some of the sections this is not going to track one-to-one, right? If we start flipping some of these other patterns, I mean, they're not going to track one-to-one. It's a different variation of a reaccumulation pattern or a distribution pattern, right, after a pump. So same thing right here, guys, because this tracks so well, the structure tracks so well, even in this section, I personally don't think that we're going to climb up the exact same way. I think that it's going to be a version of that, but just riding on the way up before we hit the first target, right, which is $8. Now, the next POI I have tracking here is July. So we'll be starting actually late June, going into July would be the next POI. That's the point of interest that we track here in the market for AMC. It has to do with the 62-day cycle. If you guys want a little bit more information on this, go watch that first video I ever posted, all right? It talks about the cycle in the form of a song, bro, all right? In the form of a song. So go check that out, and you'll get a little taste here of what the, how the cycle works and stuff. But yeah, man, apart from that, I mean, the POIs where we experience this 13-day window, we experience volatility in some form of ways we can see back here. And in this, on this POI, I've already said this before, it really is going to come down to where AMC ends up trading at on this quad witching date, right? And the projection here that I posted pretty much since before this dump, right, this projection is a pretty hefty projection now where we take a look at the price, right? So as long as the trajectory is pointing up, we trade in the $8 or $10 range, that is still a bullish trajectory. That's very good news. But everything else I have laid out here is for the macro projection on AMC. So the macro projection typically takes a little bit of time to develop. A lot of these phases in here, the way that market makers are hedging and pushing up the price, because we did experience so much volatility in the recent times, and just based on historical evidence, right, AMC does tend to trade sideways in one cycle. If we are bullish here, take a look at January 2021. What happened? It went up, it came back to a range, and then it traded sideways for another 2 months before it started to climb up in June. And I've said this, guys, over and over again, but GME has gone up way more than AMC on this most recent POI here. AMC has not seen that potential yet. Why I'm more bullish on AMC in the mid-term, right? Mid-term meaning not this specific POI that's coming up, but the one after that is the one that I'm more bullish on. So yeah, just a little projection on that, guys. But remember that on this quad witching date, for AMC to be bullish, I would love for it to be somewhere in the $8 to $10 range, so that we can finally have that quad witching trajectory pointing up. That would be great, bro. That would be great. All right, guys, that is it for today's update video. I hope you guys liked it again. Make sure you guys are sharing the heck out of this video with your family and friends. Like it up, and check out the Discord, man. I opened it up now. It's on Ko-Fi, so you guys can go in and pay what you want. There is a minimum, but you can pay what you want, support the channel. And yeah, I'll see you guys in there. Awesome. Take care.